Prime Minister Dr. the Honorable Keith Rowley met with close to 100 leaders of the Muslim community during a historic closed-door session at the Diplomatic Centre, St. Anne's on Wednesday, 7 March 2018. The Prime Minister, who heads the National Security Council, convened this special meeting in response to security threats that occurred over the Carnival weekend, which resulted in several persons being detained. Several speakers noted that this was the first time in recent history that such a wide cross-section of Muslim groups gathered together in one forum to discuss issues impacting their community.
This is the first step for the Muslims in Trinidad and Tobago to unite as one body. Because many a times we take the petty issues and it divides us. It divides us. And today this forum, Prime Minister, really gives us the opportunity to come and share our views, to let you know what the Muslim community is going through. And we could work together, we could collaborate together as a one unified body to make the Muslim community and Trinidad and Tobago a better place. One of the problems that we're facing today in the society, whether Muslim or non-Muslim otherwise, is that the policemen, some policemen, it's just like some Muslim who do the bad, some policemen, they operate in the most undignified way when they have to carry out their duties and responsibilities and functions. And this is something you have to look into.
We are in the heart of a lot of crime taking place within a stone's throw of the mosque, so to say. Many times, bodies have been shoveled off the streets, literally a stone's throw from the door of the mosque, right around Duncan Street, Piccadilly, many times. But it is quite amazing to me that not for once, in the light of all of these events taking place, never once has the police service paid us a courtesy call. There is a police post on Duncan Street. There is one around the corner on Besson Street. They have never paid us a courtesy call. But when this issue of ISIS the voice of ISIS started to become elevated, the secret services came knocking. They came knocking. Why? Because Sean Crawford, who was the poster boy, we all know who was the poster boy for the Dabiq magazine, he happened to pass through Jama Masjid, Port of Spain. He was not a member. He was working in Port of Spain at the time, and he simply passed through. So the officer who came to me, he said, listen, I have been given a mandate to come to you to investigate. I said, investigate what? He was not a member of our Jamaat. He just simply passed through. So what I would like to suggest to the members of the protective services, try to build bridges with the communities. Okay, I would also like to suggest that in every community in Trinidad where there is a masjid, there's a very high possibility there is also a police station. Build a connection. Let the police services build a connection with the mosques so that there would be no misunderstandings. Okay, if they would have to investigate individuals from within our communities, there would be no misunderstandings.
The Muslims of the world today are responsible for the Islamophobia that has been created. Face facts. We see what Muslims are doing, not to non-Muslims, what they are doing to other Muslims in parts of the world. What then is our responsibility? Trinidad is a beautiful place. Muslims in Trinidad are different. Then let us don't speak about that. Let us demonstrate that. Let our neighbors say that, they say Muslims are terrorists, but my neighbor is a Muslim, and he's an amazing person. Let our Prime Minister be able to say, you people have a problem with Muslims in your country, but in my country, the Muslims are so wonderful. This is our responsibility. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. Given the nature of the issue that has brought us here, the issue that we think some of our citizens might be gravitating to or would have gravitated to, this issue of terrorism, it is not a Trinidad and Tobago thing. It's a worldwide phenomenon. I know of no country where the country's managers have said, we are not interested in that subject because we don't have that problem. It's an international problem. It crosses borders. And we are linked by today's technology in such a way that wherever it is, we ought to be aware and be concerned. So Trinidad and Tobago is well known as a population of people who is very well integrated into the world's business, not the least of which our Muslim population is also known and our history of activities here is also known. So when the news comes out that something has happened in Trinidad and Tobago with respect to a response to a threat to our carnival, it didn't take very many brain cells for somebody to get up and try to make it look as if, well, it is, I don't know where CNN got the story from, because they didn't ascribe it to any official in the government or any person in Trinidad and Tobago. They speak about Trinidad and Tobago. What we have said, and what I want to clarify for you again, the law enforcement activities that took place here over Carnival were law enforcement activities carried out by the security services of Trinidad and Tobago. That might be hard for some people to believe, yes, but it is. However, in our ongoing monitoring of persons of interest to law enforcement, we would have, we do, and we must collaborate with other persons who would assist us in obtaining, managing, collating, or alerting with respect to the concerns that we may have. So your country, which I lead, collaborates with the French, the British, the Americans, the Dutch, the Australians, and other persons who may have the same problem that we have, which is concerns about some of our citizens who may not be up to what we expect them to be.
The Prime Minister stressed that the Muslim community was not being targeted, and that if this idea that Muslims are being persecuted is allowed to develop without facts or without an understanding of the truth, it will take us to a place that we do not want to be. He articulated that the government must trust that the citizenry is law-abiding, and citizens must be able to trust that the government will not abuse its authority. Once that balance of trust exists, we can have an orderly society.
Religious leaders, we really have the responsibility to represent God's law. So if someone comes to us, for example, and they make the very same interpretation of the Holy Quran, like many others throughout the globe have been making, and they come to us, and they are really a representation of the masses on the floor, what they are thinking and what they are interpreting the verse of the Holy Quran to be. It is an ideal opportunity in my mind, not to say to them, I'm going to call the police because you interpreting the laws of the Quran in a particular radicalized way. And that goes back in general to all those who may similarly interpret the verses of the Holy Quran in that particular way. Clearly, that could never be the answer.
When you are getting your information, you have to have systems in place to verify the information you are getting. Because there's a difference between information, there's a difference between intelligence, and there's a difference between evidence. And with all due respect, we saw that whole process very flawed during the Carnival weekend. We have a Terrorism Act that was passed in 2005. I assisted in the drafting of that legislation. And in the preparation of that legislation, the then Attorney General took great pains to invite the leadership of the Muslim community. At that time, the four mainstream Muslim organizations, ASJAD, TIA, TML, and IMG, as well as what was known as the United Islamic Organization, the UIO, which was an umbrella group for 10 organizations, including the Jamaat al-Muslimin. There were representatives who sat with the AG and expressed concerns, and the concern that was expressed had to do with the financing provisions in that legislation, because we operate a taxation system in the Muslim community.
That the biggest form of terrorism perpetuated against our people is on our everyday living. Our everyday living. We are fearful to go out in the night. We are fearful to be around our villages. If just recently someone broke into our place, stole a few items, I didn't even bother to call the police because I know there was no response. The confidence in the police force is fast being eroded, right? And this is where the biggest form of terrorism perpetrated against our people is. When you hear, within the last 2 months, more murders than days, More murders than days, Mr. Prime Minister. What is happening? Where are we living? Listen, all we love one another, you know. I work in the heart of Laventille. All over more. You don't know over more than I know over. And let me tell you something. We are a peace-loving, law-abiding citizens. But when we cannot get protection from the police service, then where are we? Where are we?
Cabinet members who serve on the National Security Council, along with other government ministers, were also present. The Acting Commissioner of Police, Stephen Williams, was an active participant. The group of leaders and the government representatives, led by the Prime Minister, agreed to continue meeting to discuss legislation, social and economic issues as often as circumstances warrant.
If information comes to me and my team that some of our citizens are thinking of, working towards, or engaging in criminal conduct. I want to end on this note again. I started. Nobody in Trinidad and Tobago should be able to truthfully say that they are persecuted or prosecuted because of their religion. Our Constitution guarantees every creed and race an equal place with equal protection under the law and an equal share of what this country has to offer. But having said that, we also accept that in all our communities, Hindu, Baptist, Christian, or whatever version, that there are some individuals who may choose to do things that can be described as criminal. If there's criminality, there's a duty of the state and its agencies to intervene. That intervention is ordered by the law, and we all subscribe to it, and the conduct of our police officers. And that's why I had the Commissioner of Police here this afternoon, so he can hear how you feel and what you think. But he made the point that, and I think somebody has pointed to me, we can't broad brush the police service, because at the end of the day, good doctor that you are, good teacher that you are, good nurse that you are, good imam that you are, the job of dealing with law enforcement and criminal conduct, especially violent criminal conduct, will remain with the police service. So whatever shortcomings there are in the police service, we work towards improving it so that we could reach the point of that trust that I talked about earlier on when we started. Leave here today trusting that in your country there's a government and there are agencies that will do what is right and do right by you. Those of us who are managing the state's affairs, we would trust that our citizens would eschew violence and criminality and work towards a better country for our citizens. Today, we open some discussions. I would take you up on the recommendation that was made in the last few minutes, that we meet like this more often and talk like this more often. Because if we meet and talk, some of the misapprehensions would go away, and that will contribute towards the trust that has to be built. Our young people, not just Muslim young people, our young people in our nation, many of them are going astray because of an absence of effective leadership. Those of you who are here, you are leaders, and it is because that development is associated with certain kinds of activities that we get the stereotyping, and people don't only get stereotyped because of your religion. You get it because of your geography, because of your accent, because of your color, because of your ethnic origin and so on. So stereotyping is something, it's a fact of life that we have to live with. But let us not contribute to anything that would lead us down a road to separate us in a we versus them. We are not here, we versus them. And the point that somebody made earlier on about the violence and the blood in the streets, about Muslims versus Rasta, it's something, it's a nettle that has to be grasped, because too many of our young men all over the country somehow find themselves associated with this phenomenon, something I didn't know when I grew up in this country. I grew up in Tobago, I know nothing like that. And even in my earlier days as a young man, but today it's a feature of our life, associated with borders, where people can't cross the street from one side to the other because you're assumed to be something. We need to walk away from that. Finally, I want to say one thing. If you genuinely believe what you said here to me today, in this room, don't say it to me quietly and privately. Say it to the nation. If you are the leaders you say you are, then stand by what you believe in and tell those who would hear you what is right for us as a people. And that harmony and diversity that we hanker after could become a reality in Trinidad and Tobago, so that we can continue to live in peace and harmony. And the violence that is so frequent and the criminal conduct that is so often observed would recede and our quality of life would improve. I want to thank you all for coming and for accepting my invitation on such short notice and for staying so long and for expressing yourselves in the way that you have. And we will continue to meet and talk and change whatever brought us here.